time, we're looking at what we've already learned with adapting our vowel sounds, but now we're going to put it into groups of different words and phrases. I've deliberately picked a couple of phrases that I've found in songs that I use with my pupils. I'm going to use that for exercises with MP3 accompaniments. But let's go through some of the principles of it first of all. What you're trying to do with this training is about adapting each of the vowel sounds so that they sound as similar to each other as possible. It's probably easier if I demonstrate. There's a passage in Someone Like You by Adele when she talks about never mind, I'll find someone like you. Well, as you may have noticed, when you say some of these words slowly, it's really got a lot of diphthongs in it. So that's your first thing to be mindful of, adapting the diphthongs. So once you isolate those and work out what your vowel sound should be, and remember you put a little note above it, like if you've got printout of the words, have it like double spaced so you can put notes above it if you need to. So this time you can put a note of what vowel sound should be above a particular word. But then when you're trying to work out all of the vowel sounds, then you're trying to marry them all together so you've got one continuous line. It makes it a lot easier for you to pass through the vowels. If you think of the phrase, once you've got the vowels almost kind of gliding over it so that our vowels are all connected, then this is the next principle of it. Just like we did with previous exercises about letting the vowels be as continuous as possible with the consonants being very light and crisp. What we're trying to practice is filling the vowels into these spaces. So that's another thing that can feel a bit strange when you first do it. And don't get me wrong, we have to be very specific about what we mean about this. This might not necessarily be something you want to do for every song, but it's an acquired skill and you need to know how to do it for particular songs. Well, if it's songs that's very sentimental and nostalgic, chances are you'll want to sing with a more of a legato line. It's all about expressing the emotions in the song. So say for instance if it was a love song and it's meant to be all like kind of heart-wrenching and things like that, chances are you'll want to sing with a really kind of smooth legato line to be quite expressive. But on the other hand, it might be a song where you're meant to sound very agitated and angry. Think about the natural patterns of speech for this. When you're angry, your way that you express yourself is short, sharp, and nit, and you did this, and how dare you, and you know it. So you want to bring through the natural pattern of speech of what you would do for that particular emotion you're trying to convey. So for this one, having a more legato line and filling up the vowels, this would be associated more for particular emotions such as being really expressive, longing and love, and sometimes even a sense of distance between people, whether that's actual physical distance or emotional distance or something like that. So I want to give you a demonstration of the Never Mind, I'll Find Someone Like You. I'm just going to sing it on one note for just now. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. That's a bit more like if you were speaking it. I'll show you again. That's on the E above middle C. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. So if we go back to what we learned before about making the first vowel of diphthongs a lot more prominent, that means for mind, that would be the ah, so it's not never mind, it's never mind. Same thing for find, is an ah again, find. This is the thing about someone like you. This is where things get a bit more tricky because that isn't a diphthong, but what you're trying to do is match the vowels as much as you can with the other prominent vowels that have come before it. So with mind and find, it's both an ah. So what you're trying to do when you get to someone is to make it more like an ah. It's a tiny little tweak that people that sit in and hearing you sing and watching you in the audience, they won't be able to tell any difference, but you'll be able to notice a difference in how much easier it is to say the words. So instead of someone, it becomes more of an ah sound that goes to the front of your mouth. Someone, so slightly more ah sound. So instead of speaking, never mind, I'll find someone like you, You'll be, never mind, I'll find someone. And then we do the same thing for like. That's a bit of the diphthong as well. We've got an ah there as well. So you make your ah more prominent, like you. It sounds ridiculous when I do it really slowly like this, but it's sometimes easier to notice how I'm amending the words if I speak it first, and then I go back into putting a note in. For this exercise, you just need to do it on one note. Don't worry about singing it as part of the song. Do it really slowly, and then you like build up the tempo. Then you can put it back into the song when you're practicing it. So your exercise, folks, is to try and do this phrase on one note, on the E again. That's quite comfortable for most voices. But this time we're trying to find the more prominent vowels, and this time it's an ah. And when you get to near the end with someone, making that particular word more like ah to match with the others. So it'll sound a bit like this. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. And that's the last thing to think about as well, is the ooh. Remember I said before, don't purse your lips like ooh. It's more of an ooh. It's something's a bit like ooh, I don't like that. So let's try to do it one more time. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. And then we can change it to different notes. Let's go down to middle C, C4. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. When you do this exercise, everyone, it might feel a bit strange because you're pretty much trying to keep everything into the same position. And that can feel really strange when you're first doing it because you're not used to such a small amount of movement. You're used to, when you speak, never mind, I'll find someone like you, a lot of jaw activity going on. What we're trying to do is minimize this movement to be a lot more efficient about what we're doing. Let's move on to another phrase I'd like to give you as an example. This time is from a Christina Perri song. It's a Jar of Hearts. So this one, it was a kind of longer passage. Who do you think you are, running around leaving scars, collecting your jar of hearts and tearing love apart? So for this bit, let's look at the words that are going to be difficult to sing. So I would say actually the word running would be quite difficult because it's what you do with the position of your mouth, but also the position of the sound that you have. For speaking the word running, it's an ah, like it almost goes back to the back of your mouth, running. But because for jar of hearts and scars and tearing lava apart, lots of ah, we want to start with more of an ah at the beginning of the phrase. So for running, it's not running how we pronounce it in speech. It's more of an ah sound, like further, brighter and further forward and higher in your mouth. Bit like how we adapted the someone for the Adele song. So instead of running at the back of your mouth, we change it to running. It's a very subtle kind of tweak, but it can make it a lot easier to sing, precisely because it keeps everything into that ideal mouth position. So we can get to that place where we're doing lots of ah. Something that I say frequently when I'm teaching is, if in doubt, go ah, or amend something to more of an ah sound, because ah is really good for keeping this ideal mouth position, getting that sweet spot that we mentioned before. Trying to maintain your mouth in that position is like one of the most difficult things that you have to do when you sing, and you're constantly adapting the words, trying to minimize movement so that things don't become small, that things don't go out of alignment around your mouth. So running becomes running. Very, very subtle difference, but it makes a huge improvement in your ability to match the vowels as we go through. Now we've looked at the word running, let's look at different parts of the phrase. We've got, who do you think you are? Running around leaving scars. Scars, yeah. Collecting your jar of hearts. You can hear there's lots of R in here. Tearing love apart. It's tricky, isn't it? If I do it really slowly. Who do you think you principle behind this is all about adapting the vowel sounds to make it sort of higher, brighter, further forward in your mouth compared to speech, so you can help maintain this ideal position with your mouth. Let's go for another bit. This is a smaller phrase. This is for lower voices, and this is the phrase, here comes the sun. George Harrison, that's it. Couldn't remember who it was. It's the same thing that's happening here. There's the word comes, you know, when you speak it, it's on at the back of the mouth here. But we want to make it further forward in its placement, so it's not here comes, it's here comes. And that makes it easier for you you got to the bit where it goes further forward, comes the sun. And the thing with sun, it's no longer sun, it's sun. You know, it might feel a bit more resonant and it's easier for your voice to be louder, but you shouldn't feel like you're pushing it. It's all about tweaking the position of your sound. So for this one, it's all about matching the ahs one more time as well. If I go back to the middle E, it'll sound a bit like this. Here comes the sun. I should say as well for the word the, instead of the, it's the. It's almost like you're going the sun. Here comes the sun. But that makes it a lot easier to travel through those vowels and to use the vowels to fill up the phrase instead of here comes the sun and the notes are too separated. Use the vowels to create that fluid line. Here comes the sun. So your action step for this one, everyone, is to listen to my MP3 accompaniments for this section. Try some of the different phrases and the vowel matching.